Caroline Burckle, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You were saying you haven't done a podcast in a while, so I have no doubt you're absolutely on tip-top form now, well rested. But how you doing?
I'm tapered from podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's been a very tumultuous year, I think, for many. It's almost broken record to say that at this point, but kind of like we said before, it feels like there's a big awakening happening over here in the United States and within everyone individually. Just a lot of old conditioning is being broken down right now. So that is what it feels like to be here or to be me throughout this time. So I sort of stayed away from podcasts for a while because I felt like I didn't have anything to say, like I didn't,
Yeah.
You're kind of discovering things. You don't really know what to say. You don't really have a lot to share or say. And I wanted that to be okay instead of forcing myself to try and figure things out and make sense of it.
Yeah, what's the landscape looking like where you are? Sort of what's it in the I was saying about on the news, you just see Trump this, Biden that, and then riots here, Proud Boys there, like is all sorts going on. But what's it, I guess, kind of like on ground, on day-to-day life in America?
Yeah, there's so many layers to keep up with here.
Yeah.
Some days it feels like you can't comprehend anything. Like I turn on the news, or I get the Morning Brew, which is a newsletter in my inbox, and I'll just start reading through it. And it makes me feel, I find myself reflecting, like, I don't know anything that's going on. I thought I did, but now I feel like I don't know anything at all, so the more you know, the less you know.
Yeah.
And so it's really just sifting through the pieces of information and then trying to understand the things right now that are going on that people don't understand. So right now we are still in the pandemic. Things are shutting down again. So I think we may be the last country to actually shut down again. If we do, I think we've tried to push it through. And just election wise, we just had a presidential election. So we have president and vice president elect, and now there's some drama going on with that. So we don't really, I mean, I'm trying to understand and follow it, but nobody really knows what's going on, I suppose. And yeah, we're still, we've always been in a fight for racial injustice here in the States. And however, it has taken on a whole new meaning over the past year since June, I think, in a way that really brought to people's attention that we haven't been paying attention.
Yeah.
So that has been something that people have been diving into as well. So those three things have been hot here.
Yeah.
It's not only affected us globally and collectively, but individually, because I think humans are in a space where we are in a giant awakening, and we are recognizing a lot of things that we thought we knew that we didn't, or that we thought we were right about that we weren't, or that we had turned a blind eye to that we were uncomfortable with, based on a privilege or whatever it may be. So it's a lot of healing happening and change.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to just see the anger everywhere, like just almost like just constant anger, and that's really tough. I think it doesn't give it the whole landscape justice. I don't think it's really. I think it's starting to really paint it is a divide. There is a divide, but I mean, it's painting such a tough picture for everyone. And I was listening to one of Sam Harris's podcasts yesterday. I think it was his latest one, and just the statement he made about like the landscape of where our facts are right now, like it's actually almost inconceivable. And I was having this discussion about when you read on the news, like genuinely what to believe, genuinely what is ultimate fact. If the most powerful man in the world can just almost make something up, and then a wide range of people believe it, like it actually was a real eye opener for me when he said those words, because I was like, this is so true. This is so true. Facts.
Very true. Yeah, we believe whatever we are told a lot of times, and I don't think that a lot of people actually stop to think about, is that what I believe? Or, Oh, sorry. Probably have a package at my door. A lot of people don't stop to think about, what is it that I believe? Or what is it that I've been conditioned to believe? Do I agree or do I disagree with this? Am I doing it because everyone else thinks this, or am I trying to actually think about what it is that I believe? And it's very scary to think about what you just said, how somebody could say something and you just go right along with it.
Yeah. I think that's so true. Like the conditioned side of it, that's actually something that I really try to catch myself doing. Like, is this something that I'm saying because of the conditioning I've perhaps had in the past, or is this actually something I genuinely believe? I always like to think of like what your default values are on what you're doing. So like if you're really pushed into a corner and you're stuck into a corner, and that emotional breakout is like, can you find what that value is that you're really listening to, you're really starting with? Because that's ultimately either your conditioning or what you truly believe. And then once you become aware of it, you can recognize like, oh, that is what I truly believe, and I can maybe challenge it, or this is a default conditioning which I'd perhaps like to change, and I've still got to do the work on it.
Yeah, and you can't do anything without awareness. So awareness is that first step, because conditioning, we all have conditioning, and that takes a lot of awareness and a dose of humble pie, to where you can say, I'm not always right about everything. The way that I'm conditioned isn't the way that it should or could or, has to be. I could go down that path for a while, because conditioning and projection and all that is like really what I'm focusing on right now in my personal journey and my healing, because there's such strong conditioning with athletes, in a lot of ways, where you're just like, this is the way it is. This is my worth. This is all this. So that is, personally what I'm working through, but I'm recognizing it on a macro level of what's going on in our world, about what I'm conditioned to believe, and where I'm totally, completely wrong, and where I am turning an eye, and what I do run from because I'm quote unquote uncomfortable or don't want to be wrong. It's all just, it's such a privilege to say that even. And I think that I'm learning that more and more, that it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
And it's okay to look inside yourself and realize the things that you have been conditioned to believe can change. Like you can rewire those. Like your nervous system can rewire. It is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
but awareness.
I would love to delve down that in a bit, actually. But just for those listening, like you were an Olympic swimmer. So how did that journey start for you? And I guess really just start wherever you want to start with that.
Yeah. So, it's a very, very long journey. I could tell my whole story and it would take hours and hours, but for just the nutshell version, hopefully so that I won't bore anyone. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky in the Midwest. And I was born and raised, I swam my whole life. But born and raised in Louisville, grew up in a rock quarry swim pool. So we had this giant rock quarry that was dug out and filled with fresh water. It was really, really special to swim there. I didn't realize it at the time, but now of course I do. And then I ventured on to get a scholarship at the University of Florida. I swam for the University of Florida. That was a very tumultuous ride for me as well. Very up and down. A lot went on for me personally there, as well as just competitively. And then I retired. Well, I swam afterwards in California. So I moved to California where some professional teams were. And it was also sort of a up and down road. And then I retired. So I went to the Olympics, though, right after college. So it landed perfectly right when I was finishing my senior year. So, but I swam in the Beijing Olympics, 2008, 4x200 freestyle relay. And that was like the fourth or fifth international meet in my career. So, and then after that, when I swam professionally, we did World Cups and stuff like that. But I ended in 2010. So before the next games, I retired. And that was like the most sure I've ever been of something, and also the most terrified and sad. It was a really sad time for me. So both of those emotions showed up when I retired, and I decided not to swim till 2012.
Yeah.
passed the baton to my brother. My brother swam in the 2012 Olympics. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I passed the baton. He was better than me the whole time, but you know what I mean? Like I retired and he went on to keep competing. So, yeah, that's a nutshell of my career.
That whole experience of going through, because you see it on TV a lot, like the high school, the college, the university sort of pathway for athletes in sport, and it's in things like NFL. It's very well documented about college football and what goes on there, and I mean, you've only got to look at then things like the Netflix series Last Chance U, and there's so many, I guess, stereotypes, and almost there's like this media hype around athletes and colleges, and the whole experience is dramatized, or I don't know. It's hard to say that's what it looks like from outside, but it was it like going through that whole college experience as an athlete in America, just because it does look so it looks so mad.
Yeah, intense. Well, the NCAA is really intense, actually. It's a really, really cool community, very intense, unique, because we are really the only country that does this kind of setup. But it really does teach you a lot about competition and teamwork and getting along with people and listening and being on a team, you know, especially for swimming, which is an individual sport for the most part. Being on a team of people and really learning through that experience is special. It really is. And I think that it set me up really well going into the Olympics, because you're a lot of people that swim on the NCAA level and go through college, and you're on that team and you're training twice a day and you're doing weights together and runs together and all this. Like, you are prepped and primed to be a team player. And NCAA in general is just a powerful organization. Like, the College Athletic Association is just powerful. So there's a lot. Every sport, football's huge, you know, basketball, it really does set people up in a way that's unique to our country, which is, you know, has its pros and cons, I'm sure, to other people, but across the board, I loved college swimming. Like, it was really, really cool to be a part of a team.
Why did you get into it? What started you? What was the driving purpose in swimming for you?
I just love the water. I felt so natural in the water. And I think I enjoy racing more than games. I don't like games.
Right. Okay.
I like teamwork because I was on a relay. I love teamwork, but I don't like games. Games are not attractive to me. Racing and being able to not necessarily just win, but to be a part of something where I can just use my body and that's it. And that's the tool that I'm using to do the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, that's such a simple concept, you know, like,
yeah.
like game, like you got a ball and a scoreboard. It's like, there's just too much going on. So for me, I was very focused on that. And I liked truth be told, as a young swimmer, I liked just the camaraderie and being outside at the pool and wearing my bathing suit. And, you know, I just loved that kind of energy. Yep. So, my mom was a professional tennis player, so I did play tennis for a while, but we just took to swimming faster.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talk about I like games, but I prefer racing. Do you then have almost a different definition of, or a different outlook on competition?
Well, I wasn't a natural I wasn't like bloodthirsty as a child. Like, I didn't get behind the blocks and be like, nah, you know, like a little angry little girl. I was actually very timid to race, but I had this innate willpower that I knew that I was good and I knew that I could win and beat people. I just didn't have, the malicious energy or anything where I was like, I need to win, I need to beat you. It was just more of a natural drive to dive in and go fast and be able to race and go fast. I think that was really fun for me. I think years later, as I look back, I think about some of the events and races that I had that were the most exciting. And I don't remember any of them, like it was such flow state for me.
Yeah.
So I think I was able to naturally tap into that flow state at a young age with the water. And so that then became easier for me to get up and race. Whereas I didn't have that natural flow state for other sports. So
Yeah.
I probably didn't care as much about those other sports. It
Yeah.
didn't click as much naturally, which, yeah, I have a lot of layers to me as a human as far as that. Like I don't think, I feel. So
Yeah.
when I feel something is right, then I'm going to gravitate toward that energy. And I felt that with swimming, and it's inexplicable. Can't really tell people what that feels like. If you feel something, it's just, you can explain it, but it's really innate within your cells and your makeup as a human. I personally believe that.
Yeah. Well, that's a really, so it just got me thinking about like flow states and the times when I was playing professionally, and even the games when I know I was in that flow state, I can't really remember them as well now. That's actually really mad. I actually can remember the days when it was harder, when it was that like real grind to almost find that, and maybe my body was hurting, I was struggling here, but that flow state is that day's just happened, and that's actually that's so interesting. Really thinking about it, that you're just in it and you're feeling it, and there is no way of describing it. That's for sure.
There's no way. And it takes training and repetition. I mean, to get to that place, it does take that. And so I think at some point we do it and we don't recognize it. And then you slowly learn what that feels like. So your body will continue to reproduce that experience. Because you can really you can do it doing anything if you really put your mind to it, and if you really want that. But I'm very into like our bodies and our nervous systems and how that is wired. So why the things happen. It's not just thinking about it that produces it. You have to actually like somatically experience it. And so I always reflect on what it was for me as a child, that I did that over and over again, that I really did enjoy that. And I personally think it was just repetition, being around at that age, a healthy coach and a healthy environment in Louisville, where my pool and my surroundings were safe to me. I could put in those repetitions and feel safe, no matter how difficult the practice was or whatever, and how bad I did or whatever. You can still put in those reps and like reach that flow state based on your environment feeling safe, because my system could keep reproducing that feeling.
Yeah, and enjoyment will come from it as well. Like that's the thing you're going to enjoy, and then the motivation stays with it. So you will get back in the pool, and you'll keep chasing that feeling.
Yeah,
totally. I'm interested to see what you think of that whole journey of being in college to the Olympic team, and like you were saying about conditioning. Did you feel like the whole system is kind of not rigged, is built to condition athletes in a certain way, to think a certain way, and do you think it leaves room for individuality almost for that person?
Then, no, not as much. Now, yes.
Right.
I think we are evolving. And then it wasn't a purposeful thing that was the case. It's just based on, again, the past conditioning of how it's always been done. So now that people are starting to tune into this concept of individuality and learning how to be someone, succeed in sport, and be someone that can also have their individuality, they can work together. Like, it's not that you can only have one. And so I think the mindset used to be you can only have one. Like you have to do it this way or you don't succeed. And that was the final answer. And now it's like, you can do it this way. You can also have your thoughts and opinions and whatever it is. And I see that. And also find the way that works for you and go. And also be a part of the team. Like both are true. All of it can be true. It's not just this like exclusive thing where it's only one thing. You have to focus on that. So I think it's come a long way. I think it will still continue to evolve, as everything should and does. But I think when I was there, I don't really recall feeling confident enough on myself to speak up really about anything or to do anything like that. it took me until my senior year
Hmm.
to have a really big blowout conversation with my coach. And it was after senior year NCAAs. I dragged my equipment bag on the deck. I was so pissed. I had to be back at practice already. We didn't get a break afterward because Olympic trials were in 3 months. I just won NCAAs in 2 events, broke an American record. And my coach was like, turn around and go home. You're wearing it all over your face. You don't want to be here. I'm not going to have that kind of attitude. And I just lost it. It was the first time, I had struggled in my career. I had a horrible sophomore year, didn't go best time at all, fought with my coach all the time. But, after that moment, my senior year, when we had that conversation and we were I was sobbing in the locker room and we're yelling at each other and then we're talking and then we're yelling and then we're talking. And it's like such heightened emotions of all the things that I'd held inside based on what I never felt like I could say or how I felt like I couldn't share certain things.
Hmm.
So after we got over that hump, I was lights out for the rest of the summer until Olympic trials. And it just goes to show you that having a conversation about something that, you may feel is really important to you, that you don't understand or that you're trying to better understand, it goes a long way.
Hmm.
And to your point, for me, it was just that I felt so different from everybody. And I felt like I was being clumped into the same category as a lot of people that I didn't feel the same as in training, or, the expectations for me were to be like everyone else.
Yeah. Do you feel
and I was so stressed about that.
Yeah. Do you feel like one of the reasons why potentially you wouldn't have had that conversation earlier was maybe sort of like around the ego and whether you felt like that was something that I should do in case it's going to make me look like a lesser athlete in front of everyone? And also the environment that the coach creates as well. So I that is, and obviously we'll get on to mentoring, but I genuinely believe that I feel like I experienced a similar situation with coaches to begin with, and the environment in which you're in doesn't allow, especially even I was in a team environment, you were in a team environment. Yes, it's an individual sport, but like you don't want to speak up sometimes when there is that coach hasn't created that environment, because you almost feel like you can play the situation out in your mind and you kind of know what's going to come. But then you're explaining there, like once you've done it, it's actually a great sort of awakening almost of realizing what you can get from it.
Yeah. And it's really hard to be a coach because you have to manage a ton of people and also hold your standard of excellence at your institution, and then also listen to everyone's feelings, and then also so it's a lot. And so I can imagine that's hard. I definitely agree with you though. The coach has to, know how to condition that environment to where it's a safe space for people to show up and feel heard. And I think that can be off the pool deck personally. On the pool deck, but I think it trickles back onto the pool deck if you feel that respect and feeling heard off the pool deck and feel that way. So for me, I personally think that it was the fact that I didn't feel confident, like you said, confident enough to use my voice. I just don't know that I would have trusted feeling seen. And I don't know that I wanted to feel seen. I think I was hiding anyway. And this is a dense topic, especially for women.
Yeah.
A lot of women don't want to be seen, but you do want to be seen.
Yeah.
And we all want to be seen as humans, but you have this thing where it's easier to just hide and shove it down, because if somebody really saw your vulnerable emotions and, someone really heard what you had to say, it's like, you're just scared to feel seen for what you really are. And as a woman athlete, you're told to suck it up, be tougher, don't complain, don't whatever, and not saying males are any different. I completely see all of the sides, my brother and I've had some of these conversations just about, to be a guy and swimming or, whatever is like, there's no emotions, definitely can't share so either way, I think you are forced to be something.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You got to step up to the plate and do your job. But I think there's also space to feel heard and seen and to feel respected and have those conversations that can be really difficult. with the athletes, which, like I said, can be difficult for a coach to do when there's a lot of people on the team.
Yeah, I just actually thinking about what I did last week, and so I coach a group of about 80 kids here, and that's a lot, like taking on that amount of emotional baggage on each person, making sure everyone's there. And then one thing you didn't mention was parents. Like, you actually take on their emotional baggage as well.
Luckily, college isn't horrible with that. I can't imagine what you experience though.
Yeah, well, that having the helicopter parents and having them nearby, right. And that's actually a whole nother, probably takes up about 80% of your time. But like it's like a little story really, and I was having trouble with the session that we were running, and I was looking at it and I was kind of like, have I got too high an expectation for these guys? Have I got too much that I'm trying to, here's where I'm thinking the level needs to be, and this is maybe unrealistic because this is kind of like professional and this is adult living, and these are people that have, this is sort of like standards you would hold an adult to, and I'm trying to do that with 14 to 16 year old lads, and I'm like, okay, that's one side of it. And I've got another coach that works with me, and he is like my mentor. He's kind of inadvertently become my mentor. And I was saying to him, like, he could see on my face, like I was just down at this session. I was like, this session is just not what I thought it would be. This is not how I saw it going. Am I asking too much of the guys? Am I asking too much of myself? And I said, well, I don't know what to do, because at the end of every session we do a review process. So we stand there and we talk about what we've done well, not so well, and what we're going to do next session to get better. And I was like, I don't know how to go with this. And there was almost like this conditioning part of me that was to go yell at them. Like that's what I've seen, and that's what I've heard. Right. But I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not who I am. Like, I don't want to. I can discipline them in certain ways because I believe that's a part of the process that is necessary sometimes, but it's not right now. It just didn't feel right, and it didn't feel right to do that process. And he just said, show them what you're showing me. Just see what happens and show them. And I just had this very open conversation with them. I was like, guys, I'm throwing this out there. I don't know. I honestly don't know. As the head coach, I don't know right now.
And that's so brilliant.
And I went through this whole conversation. I said, look, I understand we're getting better. I understand we're becoming better athletes, better players, and skills are getting better. Look at where we come from to where we are now. Like, we're genuinely getting better, but there's something missing, and I don't know whether it's on me or whether it's you. And I finished that conversation, and I kind of walked away, and the guys had given a bit more to the group and a bit more feedback. And I turned around to Bob, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, that was unreal. He said, you didn't see their faces, you couldn't see them, but their whole body language changed, the whole mood changed. They instantly were like, what the hell is going on here? And he's like, you had them. You just have them. Like, they're on board now, and they've recognized that they have done something that is they almost don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So it was
because you're posing that question for them in their head.
Yeah.
Instead of telling them what to do.
Yeah, it was a real eye-opening experience, and almost one that every sinew within me was to say, don't do this. You got to do it another way. And I was just like, don't suppress it, show it. And that was, it just completely changed that game for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a lot of power in question asking versus telling. You know, as a coach or as a mentor or as a friend or as a partner, whatever it is, I'm learning that quickly, because my conditioning is also to just help and tell and fix and be angry, or, you know, figure out how to do it instead of just slowing down and asking questions and getting curious. That's really difficult. It's difficult for a lot of people, I think. And that's perfectly normal, I think, because there is a conditioning aspect there where it's problem, solve it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I mentioned there about my mentor that I've inadvertently got. Did you have, I always feel like people who end up mentoring, you go down one of two roads. You've either had great mentors and you want to replicate that, or you just didn't have mentors, and then you kind of want to, you want to find, you want to either be that, fill that space and help others. Do you feel that
Yeah.
there's those categories, which one you were, or do you have any others?
Uh, Gosh, I feel like it's both for me. I think I also, there's a part of me that's also I'm very curious. So when there isn't something like something, I want to create it, you know? So
Mm,
I think when I saw the opportunity for Rise, which we've created, this mentorship platform between professional Olympic athletes and youth athletes, I was like, there's nothing like this. Like, now
mm,
I'm curious. And then as I peel back those layers, I recognize I had great mentors in my life. You know, my mom was amazing. Mike DeBoer was amazing, but nothing really feels like it was a deliberate, intentional sit down kind of mentorship. You know, it was
mm.
there, and of course it's beautiful and supportive, but it wasn't something that was like deliberate for that, to where you know that you have that specific feeling and time with that person, and it doesn't have to get interrupted about what it is that you're experiencing.
Yeah,
um so I think that was, my curiosity led me down that path to that.
that's
Yeah.
that's that's um that's actually probably opened my eyes a little bit to my own, because you're right. I reckon you have multiple mentors, obviously at certain different stages, and they hold different spaces for whatever you need at that time. And I would definitely think, yeah, I had good mentors. I think probably sometimes as an athlete, there's one you're deep down crying out for, and there's one you're like, this is the one I really need, and then that's the one you're trying to either fill, find, or sometimes even self-destruct when you haven't got it.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that I had good mentors, and I think the beautiful relationship I've got with someone like Bob now is that it's inadvertently happened, and it was like and there's a lot of things that are just like happening by chance. Like I was down on the seafront the other day, and I jump out of the car and bang, there's Bob. He's doing his morning walk. Do you want to go for a coffee? Yeah. And then how amazing I felt after that, and just being able to didn't go out of my way to think like, right, I'm going to be unloading a load of emotions and how I'm thinking right now. It just happened, and that was a really beautiful thing that happened, because it just unfolded. But it was with someone that I've definitely felt has become a mentor, and probably one because I'm miles away from my family. Like I'm nowhere near my home life, so I have filled that space with him, and it's been really nice. It's been really, really good. Like that I really encourage people to have that and find that within their world, or just let it happen. I think let it happen as well. If you don't have
Yeah.
to fight it.
Well, it's a safe space. And when you can find safety in your system, and you can be in a space where you are able to sink into what it feels like to feel safe with someone and receive that love.
Mm,
There are two things that are really difficult to obtain. You know, receiving love and receiving that joy from someone, and that listening ear and that safety can be scary for us.
mm,
Like, it's like essentially a way that we push people away is when we push away good things. A lot of people self-sabotage. You push away positive things that could happen for you. And it takes a lot of practice and time to receive that love, and to be okay with someone being there to listen to you and being there to support you. I think on the flip side of that, we can sometimes get in states where we need somebody there, you know, and that's like, I need this, I need someone there. I'm afraid of being left alone, and I'm afraid of being alone. And that is also a cry for the same exact thing, is
mm,
that I know that I could easily run away and easily go away from everybody, but I'm wanting and needing that love and connection.
mm.
So at the end of the day, we want and need that love and connection. It's just a matter of receiving it and asking for it and learning how to ask for it. Like, the need doesn't really change. It's just either you're pushing it away, or you're bringing it in and receiving it.
For an athlete though, it's so tough sometimes, because you're conditioned down that road of like, struggle is a good thing. struggle is a good thing. And sometimes you'll misalign that struggle with like, I'm really internally struggling, but is this a part of the process? Is this a part of the journey that I've got to go through? And then your whole world will change in the sense that you won't be seeking that help. You almost wear that struggle like a badge of honor, and you'll be like, "This is
totally
this is what I want to do."
That's a whole topic, yes, because that attachment to pain. So I'm going to go down a small rabbit hole here, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it.
Okay, so something that I've been working on through some of the somatic experience healing stuff I've been doing. So I went through a lot of trauma in my career, and I ran away from it for a decade. And then all of a sudden it hit me last year, like a sack of bricks. Like every day I was having a panic attack, nightmares every night, just the whole thing. So what you run from will come back to find you if you have not healed it. And that is the truest thing. And I did not believe it until last year. So that's context for what I'm about to say. But I had gone through this period of time in my life during my career and after my career where I wanted to make everything hard. Like I thought you had to struggle to succeed. I thought you had to be in pain in order to have triumph. I thought, the harder the struggle, the better this, And so it was like, the more that I was attached to that, my whole identity was that I need to be in pain in order to feel loved. So the more that I could be in pain, the harder I could make something suck, the more the struggle was. Instead of just acknowledging it and being like, this sucks or this is hard, I was like, oh yeah, this feeds me. Because on the other side of this, I'm going to feel that high. Like once I can overcome this, once I can get past this. I didn't realize any of this was going on until I started doing my work 2 years ago. It was like none of this even became a thing. I had no idea. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that makes sense. So the reason for that is because what I'm learning is because if you've been conditioned to feel safe in those environments, you will go and trend toward those environments.
Yeah.
You will trend toward pain if that is safe for you in the past. Now, it's not safe. Don't use that literally. Like it's not a safe place, essentially. But if it's what you know, and your body, like your nervous system thinks that's safe, like you just think that's normal to be in pain. You think that that's just the way it is. You will go into that space over and over and over and over again. And there have been multiple books written on this. The Body Keeps Score. I'm reading Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. I mean, you name it. There's a ton of books just on this topic of the nervous system and trauma and what happens with our bodies. It doesn't have to just be trauma. It can be a stress response. But when we are constantly going toward that pain and attaching to it as our identity because it's safe, that can cause a lot of resistance in your life, in your daily life. Like you won't receive love, you'll push it away, you get triggered easily on things. Like all these things start to happen because if you don't have the pain, something's wrong. If things are going well, something has to be going wrong. Where's the shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
And so as an athlete, when you do have struggle and things are really hard and you are embracing it, my biggest piece of advice with that is that it's not going to go away. Struggle is going to be there forever. Struggle is not going to go away. We are going to have hard times in sport, outside of sport, with family, with friends, with relationships, with the country, with whatever it is. But the more that identity is attached to that, to be the thing that like turns your system on and like the thing that you need, that's where the resistance and the problems can start to show up and your body wears down. Your body just wears down because you're in survival all the time.
Yeah.
So if you can acknowledge it, what I'm working on now is acknowledging it and becoming aware of it so that you can actually like walk alongside of it and use it and like do great things with it instead of like, I have to live with this or I'm not worthy. Like this is the only way that I can come out on the other end is if I conquer this thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my tangent on that, but I'm very passionate about that topic for sure.
Yeah. And you explained the work you're doing for it. So I guess for people that are listening and a lot of people will hear about, I'm doing the work for it. What does that work look like for you currently? Because it is individual, but it is also, there can be some sort of advice that people can take from it and learn from themselves.
Yeah, Uh, it's different for everyone. There's a lot there. But overall, I'm rewiring and repatterning my nervous system so that I can work with it and not against it.
Mm.
Or rather, it can work with me and not against me.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that looks like, somatic experiencing, is not really just cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's doing things like breath work, and somatic experiencing is like moving meditation and using your body and touch and like ventral hugs and doing all sorts of like rapid eye movements work with the therapist and stuff. And so that really helps you actually go through your body and rewire it and repattern it that way. This can happen on a macro level where you do this for your whole life to where it kind of overarches everything that you've been through. Because if you've been living in sympathetic state for a really long time, that's really important to rewire and repattern. But it can happen on a micro level too, with injury in sport, with acute trauma, with an argument, or with a really big blow up with someone or something. It can happen with a death. It can happen with really anything, not that those are acute, but you know what I mean? Like events throughout your life. You can work on repatterning what it is that you're afraid of, or what it is that you've come to believe because of that event. So, for example, someone's parent passes away. They will then, and I've had an athlete that I've worked with this, parent passes away, and her conditioned response was, I'm going to be left. Like, I will always be left alone. So, her fear was this abandonment fear that like the moment someone gets close to me, like they're going to leave me. So repatterning that in the moment and working on what that is can do breath work, meditation, working on recounting an event in your mind, explaining it and seeing what happens in your body, like what shows up in your system. And all of that can work very well in conjunction with self-talk and cognitive work and all of that, because they have to work together. But if you're not aware of what's going on in here, you can't really these two are not separate.
I really like what you're saying about I think even from an athlete's point of view, the physical side, like whether it's like you're saying, moving meditations or like mindful movement. I think the fact that how much we store in our bodies is like incredible, and I almost feel like whenever I get whether it's a like a muscle spasm or even like a cramp in something like that, or just like a niggle, I'm like, I haven't changed my training, I haven't changed what I'm doing, that's come from somewhere else. Like that's not there's no change in what my structure is, so that can't be just the physical. I think that whole awareness and going into yoga years ago, and that's really just opened my eyes up for it, especially as a male as well, because you're right, I think men will want to hold that badge on for longer. We'll literally make a uniform out of it. Like that is what we are wanting to do, because we're like, well, everyone else has got their badge of honor and their uniform, so I'm going to wear mine as well. And so more pain, bring it on. There's pain, and it must be, even society promotes that, like through whether it's marketing, the social media ads, whatever you might follow, but also that's just conditions society, and their advice may even be skewed sometimes because of their conditioning on what you should do. That's
absolutely. And that's the thing that's so fascinating too, is like we become better teachers and coaches if we do our personal work, because projection is real, and if something's unhealed, we can be projecting upon the athletes or our friends or family what it is that we're experiencing, and we don't even know we're doing it. It's just like automatic in your nervous system. Like it happens, it's crazy how quick a thought can come up based on something that's like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, just because your body believes that to be true. So, for example, I can give an example about what I personally worked through. So when I first seeked out this kind of therapy and working through this process, I not only wanted to heal myself, but I wanted to heal the next generations of people through this, because it starts with one person, like passing this stuff on. If I were to go and have kids in 3 months, I would be much healthier having children now than I would 3, 4, 5 years ago, because I'm releasing the stored trauma and experiences from my body. We store so much of them. So something that I replayed a scenario in my head that was very traumatic for me over and over and over again, so much that it started to manifest in my dreams, started to manifest in my daily experiences. The moment I would like experience something similar, I would totally shut down, or my body would go into dorsal state. Like it would just become flat. And it basically took me a year and a half doing the same exact thing with her over and over again for just a portion of the session every time, for me to finally not have those dreams anymore. Like it took that long to unwire the thing that had been wired within me to where I can completely shift what that experience was through visualization and imagery. Wow. And it took a really long time, but like creating a new scenario and doing it over and over and over again. I had tight traps. My hips were hurting. I broke my left heel twice. I had a horrible concussion a few years ago that didn't heal really fast at all because of, whatever the case. But my body kept telling me, like, you are holding on to so much. Something has to start. You have to start something, like, and I was indestructible during my career, but it, unfortunately it caught up to me. And fortunately it caught up to me. I'm glad it did, because I was just storing so much in my body. And then by repatterning things through visualization and imagery, my body was able to heal. Like my body actually started to knit itself back together and get healthier through all of the ways.
Yeah. There'll be so many athletes that will take so much from that, and being able to recognize that even if you're like an ex-pro and you've retired, like looking for something, just start doing something, just start that work. And also I think it's worth sort of speaking about, I've actually had conversations with people when they talk about going into, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, they think like, well, I'm going to lose my edge. I'm going to lose my sort of like gritty competitiveness, and like, I want to, first is first and second is last. They're going to lose that edge. And it's always the explanation that no, it actually makes it, you become more aware of it. And then you can actually even, you then have the choice of whether you turn it on, because what you've chosen in that conversation we're having is, well, I'm going to choose to turn it off once I become aware of it. That's what you're doing. You're
so glad you said this, because I was actually going to say this at the end, just that none of this means that you have anything wrong with you or that you can't succeed. You can be going through the hardest of things and feel absolute dog crap and also succeed. You can, both are true. You can have more than that going on. You don't have to just be, all in on this one idea of who you are as a human in order to succeed. The best football players in America have 3 organizations they're involved with, and they founded, and they have families and kids, and so we have to remember that as an athlete, it's okay to be in a couple of different spaces in your life. Being hyper-focused happens when you are turning into that space of practice, turning into that space at a competition, and then being able to step aside and live your life healthy and whole and free and smart and full of connection and fulfillment outside, because that is going to nurture your system so that when you do put your blinders on and go into a scenario that you need to be focused, practice and competition and, outside training and everything, that you can do that. So, to answer your question, for people that say, I'm going to lose my edge if I meditate, if I do all of these things, yes, you become more aware, but also it helps you pivot, because you have to learn how to pivot when you're at the track running and you're competing, or you're soccer practice or tennis or swimming, and you can't pivot to then go and have a meal with your family. That's where that could be helpful, to learn how to pivot so that you can do that. And I think that's where the mindfulness and meditation and things can come in, because you become more aware of how to do that. And you're going to mess up. You're going to be sitting at dinner with your family and thinking about the practice and so pissed off, and that's beautiful. That's fine too. It's just that you learn how to be better at it with practice, so that when you are at a competition and there's a thunderstorm over here and you're outside over here and Johnny's talking shit over here and someone's yelling at you over here, you're like, boom, boom, boom. I can stay right here in my lane and I know how to do this because I've practiced those tools of reining in to my body and my physical space and moving forward.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because that kind of is about the way I describe it to people who are not into mindfulness or meditation. I'm like, you got to see it as, or they find that they get distracted when they're doing it. I'm like, that's the beautiful bit. That's what, that's the stuff. Hold on to that, because, but then recognize that you're now making a choice to come back to your focus point, whatever it was you were honing in on. That's where you've done the repetition, the little bicep curl of your mind. That's where you've done it. And the more of those you do, the stronger you're going to be. Like, that's ultimately
Absolutely.
it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the beauty of it, is noticing those distractions and being in that place. And meditation's hard. I ran away from it for a long time because I didn't want to sit with myself. But when I started to sit with myself, I realized how uncomfortable it was. And then also how I can detach from that pain of that and become somebody that just sat alongside it. Like, here's Caroline, here's Caroline's pain. Like, let's just sit together and go through this experience instead of being like, this is me. This is all me, you know? I think that everything is sort of a collaboration with your feelings, a collaboration with your thoughts, a collaboration with your experiences, because they just make up you and they're not you, you know? So if that makes sense, it can get very abstract, but
yeah, well, I think it's just recognizing that you have the ability to, as an athlete, as a human being, to compartmentalize parts of your life. Everything doesn't have to be all about everything, and it's not all necessarily linked. And then I found when I started to do that, when I started to be more mindful of when I'm at practice and I'm practicing, and when I'm at home, you benefit on both ends of those, because you're engaged in the practice or the home life or the work you're doing, but then also because you have that rest and that recuperation from not being engaged in it all the time, you feel motivated for it again when you come back. So that is such a, and burnout being a big thing for athletes is such a burnout for everyone. Like, everyone right now, I have no idea, like with the pandemic, everyone is going to be feeling some sense of burnout, whether it's being stuck in your own home or something like that. And that ability to switch it on and off is only going to make you value the moments you're in even more, or seek them out. Definitely seek them out, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And there's no right or wrong way to do things. Everyone's different. So I think if there's any last thing I could say, you know, that about that topic or about anything, is just that you're not going to be like the person next to you. You know, whoever's in the lane next to you or competing next to you or practice next to you, they're very different than you. And all of these principles and things we talk about apply, but you make them your own. You take what you understand and you take the values of it and the overarching idea and concept of it, and you make your own reality and belief out of it. And I think that will pivot a million times, just like we recondition ourselves a million times. You'll recondition yourself in 3 more years, in 4 more years, in 5 more years. But staying under the same dogma or whatever it is over and over and over again definitely won't achieve success. And so continue to get curious with yourself is always my go-to line. It's like, just get curious. What does that mean for you? And what it means for you right now won't be what it means for you in November 2021.
Yeah,
it may mean something different.
Yeah, constantly asking questions of yourself, which we don't like doing. I think that's a big part of doing that. When you are working with in Rise, so when you're working with a mentee and you're mentoring them, what is the sort of process that you find? Is there almost a structure of your process you go down, or is it literally I need to mold this process around the individual?
Great question. So when they come into our program or they inquire, they take a survey, and the survey is pretty long, but it's not long time wise, but it's just like pretty extensive to where they can, you know, get a good feel of what they need to work on. And so that survey comes to us, and then we can assess where they want to start. So we get the strengths portion, and then we get the areas that they would need to work on. So for example, you could have somebody come in that has a huge strength in adaptability and communication and self-talk, but they cannot tap into visualization. They cannot understand imagery. They don't really do breath work. They're not understanding their body, so that's where we start. But we utilize the strengths with the areas of work. So then we take them down that track, and we have different tracks that we can take them down on in our curriculum, but it is individual to each athlete. So according to what they need, their needs are when they come in, we then cater that program to them so that they can get that individual attention.
Are you finding a trend in young people, what their certain needs are at the moment?
Self-talk.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Self-talk and comparisons.
Oh wow, yeah, could have gone down a rabbit hole there, but
that's social media and all of that. Like,
oh my god, I genuinely think that those are the two things that I see most often
everywhere.
Comparison with that person, and self-talk, the negativity. Oh my god, it's
a lot, and it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways. We didn't have social media growing up, so I'm like, I don't even know. We didn't even have it at the Olympics, for God's sakes. We had no social media. I think Facebook was brand new basically when we went. So, it is a new world with those things, but those are the two things that we see, and we see them over and over again. We do see some anxiety, performance anxiety and things like that. But that can be tamed a bit when we can learn how to tap into that self-talk and then what shows up in your body during the self-talk. So then they know when they're anxious, it's usually self-talk that has turned into a bodily experience through their nervous system. Yeah.
Have you ever read the book Masaru Emoto's Hidden Messages in Water?
No, but I will. Should I write it down?
100%. I think you'd really Hidden Messages in Water.
I'm gonna write that down.
By Masaru Emoto. Basically, just giving an overview of it, he was a Japanese scientist who believed that sound waves had an impact on water. So what he wanted to study was what the impact would have on the molecular structure of water, and his belief that water being a part of everything on life, it is the life force that we have. So what's the first thing that NASA go to look for when they're going to the planet? They look for water. And so what his experiments were around getting speakers to begin with and getting water, and he would play certain sounds to the water, and then he would freeze the water. Now the words that were being played on the speaker would be like love, kindness, and then he would do a separate dish where he'd be playing like anger, hate, and all negative connotations. Then he'd freeze the water and check the molecular structure of it. And when he would go onto the microscope and look at the water that had been listening to hate, anger, all the negative connotations, the molecular structure was all this distorted shape and it was ugly. And then when he went to the positive words, it was all these beautiful symmetrical crystals that were just incredible. Yeah. And then so he went even further and he started showing words, just written words, to the water, and did the same thing, same output, like distorted in the negative, beautifully symmetrical and crystallized in the positive. Then he went and took like natural spring water, and then he took like polluted water that come from like a sewer, and same thing, beautifully crystallized, very very distorted. And the ultimate was, what do? We not only have an impact through the words we speak to someone, through what we believe is a verbal impact, but it's actually changing them on a molecular structure. It's that those words are having an impact, and that. And the more I thought about it, I was like, that, like there's that. There has to be something more to when someone is saying something negative about you, that you physically change. And we're 70% water. Sure. Yeah. We're 70% water, which is the point he was making, that you feel this physical. And what is that? It's not necessarily what's going on in your mind. It is the physical experience of what you're hearing. And then that self-talk is the same. So whether it's through mantra, repetition, affirmation, being able to almost change your molecular structure, this have this impact on water on you. I have no doubt you would like that because of your affiliation to water.
Yeah, that's Well, and they do stuff like that with plants as well. I mean,
Mm.
you speak ill to plants, they'll start to die. And it's the same thing. Like I noticed sometimes, like when I was going through a really, really dark period, all my plants were dying. And it was insane. It was like they feel your energy. And then the moment you start to become alive, like you see them perk back up, and it's so fascinating. Like I know it sounds so weird, but yeah, it's very fascinating.
Yeah. So where do you start with an individual on their self-talk or their comparison to others? Are you working on what they're saying or trying to completely change it straight away? Or is it built upon an understanding of what they're saying to them first?
Yes, exactly. So you can't really do any sustainable change through anything fast or just through intellectualizing it or, saying it or talking about it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and repetition and feeling it in their body and what it feels like. And we do a lot of different practices with that. But the first part's awareness. What are they saying? What are the thoughts? How can we switch them? And then going into the switching process, that's the part that takes a really long time. So, gosh, I mean, sometimes I work with athletes on it for a year, and every session we'll just write down those thoughts again and flip them and then read them out loud, see what she feels in her body, see what he feels in her body, do it again the next session, do it again. Oh, another one comes up that's new. Yeah. Start with that one, add it to the list, like do it in that section. So it just takes time to the point where your body just rewires itself over time to where those thoughts don't come up anymore. So you see less and less of them throughout the year. And then there's like 2 at the end versus 12 at the beginning.
Yeah.
And those are the only 2 that come up, like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that anymore. Or, so I think that is a really important thing to scale it, is to let them come up with those answers themselves as well, and have them share them and see what they feel in their bodies and their beings.
Yeah, I think and it would take time for them to break down that conditioning and recognize that it's okay to talk about it.
Totally. And that the whole concept of that, it can be mind-blowing for them, that's even that they have someone to talk to. So getting past that initial shock of being seen
yeah,
and allowing themselves to be seen.
Yeah. So how much I really like when I think of having mentors and mentees, there's that element of accountability with what you're doing as well. Mm-hmm. So how much of what you're doing are you holding them to account with their whole practice, their change, and that experience?
I mean, we hold them. It's pretty good, like, because we see them every week. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's a pretty good. We take notes and then we can touch back on those things a week later. I'm trying to think of an example, a specific one, because there's so many that are flooding through my brain about something accountable. I have an athlete that's really unique. She likes to write poetry. So every session she'd write a poem about how she felt and what was showing up for her. And so then she had to have a poem for me every week, so that we started the session with that, because that's how she liked to express herself. For her, it was easier, so it's just getting to know them. It's connecting with them and getting to know what they like. Some of them like to draw and feel expressive in their creativity in that way. Some people like to write poems. Some people like to just talk it out. And we just talk it out. Some people like to write it out in bullet points and then we go over it, so it's getting to know them and then holding them accountable to have that piece of information for us the next session. And then when they graduate past that, we use whatever that was to move on to something else that's going on with them, and look, sometimes things happen and they come in with something that's urgent, that's totally different. And we talk to them about that, oh, my ankle, I broke my ankle, or, like, oh, we did this. So then we pivot a little bit. So learning how to pivot as well is also a skill they need to know anyway. So, but for the most part, we follow that and then use whatever we've done with self-talk or whatever that is to then pivot into, okay, let's use that now into talking about the performance anxiety and working through what that is. Yeah. And everyone's different.
And you spoke about that. I mean, that's a really amazing example with the creative output she has there through poems. You have art, like you do a lot of art. And was that yours?
Yeah.
Was it an outlet, or was it something, just a hobby that grew into more?
It was, so I went to fashion school when I was done swimming for 2 years. And that was always my passion in high school and in college, but I couldn't really take classes for that because they conflicted with practice times.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I chose swimming first. But when I had my concussion in 2018, I revisited it. I had kind of ran away from it to build Rise and to just focus on other things in my life. And I just didn't really have any passion to make art for a while. I was also really numb to a lot of things and I was going through a lot personally. So I just didn't make it. I was like, I'm just not going to make it. And so I started doing it again when I had my concussion because I had a horrible concussion. It took like a year. It took till last year at this time to heal. I couldn't even have a conversation with anyone. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. This is like, I can't put sentences together. I split my skull open and I was giving blood and then fainted and split my skull open, standing up onto a cement table and then back to the floor and ricocheted back again. So I had like a whole internal bleeding deal going on. And it was my first brain trauma experience. Like I'd never had anything happen. And that is a very real, if people, whoever's had a concussion or, props, because it is an invisible injury that nobody understands, that trying to share with them, like, I'm sorry, I just forgot what you just said 5 minutes ago, is like, it's really hard. It's like really hard and embarrassing. And there's a lot of shame with it. And you can't do sounds and be around people and just all of it. So that being said, I started drawing again. I started sketching again. And the reason I started sketching the human form again was because, first of all, I did that in fashion school, so it felt natural. But second of all, I was healing my body. Like I had just gotten over 2 broken heels. Now I had a concussion. I had a septic knee, all this stuff that was just like, why am I so out of touch with my physical self? Like what's disconnected here? So I started sketching it and it brought that back for me. It was a way for me to heal there. So I did start to express myself through that. And I still do, to be honest. I still go to that when I need just a break from words or thoughts. Yeah. It allows a different kind of experience for me.
Yeah, it allows that compartmentalization of your world as well. Just
absolutely
an escape. Like I think that's something that I'm so glad I found at some stage. And for me at the time it was actually yoga. Like it was the thing that was an escape for me, because weirdly enough, even though it was physical as an athlete, it was actually an escape from the way in which physical movement would be done in a professional environment. So
for sure,
it felt different. It felt, and it is a thing now. I just recognise how long we've been going. I'm so thankful for your time.
I know, it's okay. I do have a call though at 2:30, but I mean.
No, I'm so appreciative of your time.
That's okay. I didn't even notice either.
I've only really want to delve into sort of last little thing about being a role model. Obviously, a mentor is essentially a role model, and one thing that I have found with myself is through being a mentor and having been mentored myself, is that ultimately I feel really proud of being that role model. And I don't know where you stand with it and where you get your energy from through being a mentor.
Truth be told, I just like connecting with people. I don't mentor as much anymore, only because Rebecca and I have to run the business. So we sort of stepped back from that and are running the business. And we have a couple athletes, but not many. I just like connecting. I like feeling like somebody feels seen. Because I know what that feels like to not, and to feel like you're alone and no one's listening to you. And whether people think they need it or not, of course we need it. We're hardwired for that. Like we are not hardwired to be alone by ourselves in the middle of a forest. That is a wonderful experience. Please, everybody go take your solo time. I'm all about it. But it's for sure, we are hardwired for community and to be together in connection. And I think if I could make a difference of that in anyone's life, that would be my biggest blessing.
Yeah. Definitely, that's beautiful. How would you recommend, if someone's looking for a mentor? other than coming to Rise Athletes. How would you recommend someone seeking a mentor or knowing who they need? I don't know. Have you ever found a way to go about it?
It's tricky because, like we said earlier, you can either have them that are already there, and they're your mentors, like your mom or your sister or your brother or your aunt or your uncle or your coach. You can view them as a mentor, but I think it's getting clear with what your definition of mentor would be. Is it someone, like, what do you want? And I think start there. Do you want somebody to listen to you? Do you want somebody to talk to you about performance and about this? It's like you can narrow down what it is that you need and then start looking. And it's being raw and vulnerable with yourself on that. If you just want to feel seen and heard, a mentor is a great person for you. If you want to dive into the science of sport and your mind and specific stuff, maybe a sports psychologist is best for you. If you want to dive into, if you have if you're struggling with eating or depression or something like that, then a regular psychologist is good for you. So that, there's all these different kinds of things. But as far as like mentorship, I think that can come in many forms in someone's life. But I think it's getting clear with what it is that you want first. What it is that you need? What it is that you want? What are the outcomes you want from that? And then narrowing it from there.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, how do you become a mentor? And I kind of feel like that's an experience that just kind of happens as well. I don't feel like you kind of see, like, I want to be your mentor. I'm going to mentor you.
I think you just know what you would have liked.
Yeah.
Back to the initial question, like, is it because you had one or is it because you didn't? And I think you have to know what it is that you appreciated in that space and then dive into that, because I think it's just so important. And who wouldn't? Like, in my opinion, I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want someone that has been there before. But that does, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and the student has to be ready, and they have to want to do that. And I'm a big proponent of that. I think that when you force it, it doesn't necessarily work, but you have to be ready to want that experience in your life, to be ready to learn, to be ready to be wrong about something, to be ready to strike down your conditioning, to be ready to change your mind, to learn new things, to feel supported, to have a safe space, all those things, being ready for those things.
Yeah. Wow. What a great place to finish it off. I think that was, that was an awesome end.
It was a lot of fun.
If people want to find you, get in touch, find out more, where's the best place to send them?
My Instagram, I suppose, is a good start, or my email. I'm at Caro Burckle on Instagram. My email is caroline@rise-athletes.com. I don't use Twitter or Facebook much. And then rise-athletes.com is our site that people can find us and inquire, set up a free call with one of our mentors and get to know them. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to even hearing you go on to Rich Roll's podcast, which you're doing soon. That's going to be really exciting.
Very excited. Look, yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.